Hello, Vine Church. Pastor Brandon here, getting together with you for our midweek devotional. So we're going to jump into Psalm 139 this morning. So if you have a Bible, something you can get the Bible in front of you, encourage you to do so. We're just going to look at the first 18 verses of this passage, and we're looking at some passages recently to look through the idea of the character of God, the nature or attributes of God. You know, as we're going to follow God and know who he is, we have to have some understanding of him, right? So as we dive into the scriptures will show us just the nature and character of who our God is. So today we're going to look at this idea of the knowledge of God. What does God know? Is there anything that God doesn't know? Typically, the theological term for this is the idea of God's omniscience. He's all-knowing is what that theological term means. There's not one thing in this world that God does not know. He knows the fullness of everything. Everything that's ever happened, everything that will happen, every thought and intention of a human mind or heart, or every word that comes out of a human's mouth. God knows everything. Like, on one level, that is really hard for our finite brain to comprehend. But it's also a beautiful thing to know that, like, there's nothing outside the reach and knowledge of God's understanding. It's interesting when you think about it. Like, human beings, we pride ourselves on knowledge. We pride ourselves on intellect and knowing and learning. Like, the more prestigious in our society are people that have gone through further levels of education in college and master's degree and doctor's degrees and become experts in certain fields. And even the knowledge that we've acquired, it's so limited, so pales in comparison of the knowledge of God. So we're going to look at Psalm 139 just because it really does a good job of diving into this subject and giving us just an understanding of God's knowledge, his knowledge of all things, and specifically us. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to, instead of reading the whole thing and then dissecting it, I'm just going to read section by section, and we'll just talk through it together today. So Psalm 139, first 18 verses. This, of course, is David, so King David writing in this psalm. So he says, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all of my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, you, O Lord, you know it altogether." Like, just even in those first 4 verses here, it's powerful what David's describing to us about God. God, you search me and you know me. Like, David's saying, like, you know everything about me, God. Everything that every thought in my mind, every intention in my heart, everything I've ever done. He goes into specifics. When I sit down and when I rise up. Like, every action of my day, God, you know me. You know that right now I'm sitting here talking about this passage. You know this morning when I woke up. You know when I will go to sleep tonight. You know the different activities I'm going to do throughout the day. I may not have fully even planned out my day yet, and you know what those are going to be, and you know everything that I do in every day. You discern my thoughts from afar, right? So not just that he knows the actions of our day, but he knows our thoughts, right? That God knows what's in our head. It's a scary and beautiful thing to see, right? Like, nobody fully knows you except for you, because you know what's going on in your head. You know what you're thinking of on any given level. That you're only the people only know what you let them know about what's in your head. You'll share verbally some things, but not all things. This is saying that God knows you on a deeper level than any other human being ever will know you, because he knows the thoughts that are in your head. He knows your thoughts from afar. He searches out your path and you're lying down, and he's acquainted with all of your ways. He's acquainted with everything you do, every thought you have. And then this last one here, that even your tongue, before a word is on your tongue, he knows it altogether. Not just that he knows every word that comes out of my mouth, but he knows every word on my tongue before it's on my tongue. So the word I'm saying right now, he knew it 5 seconds ago that I was going to be saying that word, right? The knowledge of God is unfathomable. He knows me. He knows the actions of my day. He knows the thoughts in my head. He knows the words that come out of my mouth before I even know those words, before I even say those words. It leads him to here in verse 5 and 6 to say this, you hem me in behind and before, you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high and I cannot attain it. right? So David's looking at this, like, you know me, where I'm actions of the day, my thoughts, my words, you know it all. Like, that is too high, too much that I cannot contain. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. So he's just looking at that and saying, like, there's just a profound, like, reverence for God and an understanding that God is superior. Like what I was saying earlier, like, humanity seeks for knowledge. We are a people that elevate knowledge, and rightfully so. Like, we want to know and know stuff about ourselves and our world and why people do things, and like, knowledge is a good thing. He's saying here, like, this kind of knowledge, like, that's on a different level. It's high. It's something I cannot contain. It's a different level of knowledge that God possesses. And David's just making notice of that. This next section here, verse 7 and beyond here, he says, where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, then you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me is night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as day, and darkness as light with you. Right? So he moves on first from this, you know my thoughts, you know what I'm doing, you know the words of my mouth. Like, that just blows my mind. I cannot understand that, to some extent, is what David's saying. Now he's saying, like, even your presence, like, I can't leave, I can't go somewhere where you're not. Where can I go that your presence isn't there, is what he's saying. Can I go into heaven? If I go into the heavens, are you there? Yes, you're there. If I go into Sheol, the underworld, are you there? Yeah, you're there. Then he throws out this other one and says, if I take, like, wings and we're able to fly off into the middle of the deepest, darkest ocean, even there, you're even there. Like, if you think about David's time period and thinking about someone being alone in the ocean, like, at David's time period, the ocean would have been like outer space for us. Like, we've mapped out a lot of the ocean, but, like, for them, out in the middle of the ocean, somewhere isolated by yourself, would have felt like being out in outer space. Like, the idea of, even if I was in outer space, God, you're there. There's not one place I can be where you are not, is what David's point is. Then he even says, to the point, not just that you're there, but that you hold me, and your hand, even there, I'm in your hand and you hold me. So, like, even not just that God, you can't escape God's presence, but wherever God is, he's there with you, and kind of a holding aspect, a personal connection. And he throws out this idea of darkness. He's like, okay, if I can't leave you in distance, going somewhere where you're not, what about darkness? Maybe if everything's just dark around me, then there you can't see me anymore. You can't know me anymore. And David's saying, to God, darkness is as much as the bright light of the day. So as much as you and I can see in the bright light of the day, God sees in absolute darkness that same way. Like, just profound, the knowledge and understanding of God. The fact that God is everywhere and sees everything, knows everything. Nothing's beyond his knowledge and insight and understanding. Verse 13. He says, for you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's wombs. For I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, and yet there was not, and when as there was not none of them. All right, so here's the point that he's saying in this point. He's saying, like, even in when you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. So, like, God doesn't just know the outward physical of our body. He knows the internal of who we are. Not internal like he knows your internal organs. Like, internal like he knows your soul, your spirit, your mind, like, what makes up who you are. The fullness of what makes up you is not just the physical body. It's not just the intellect. It's the soul, the spirit that makes up that person. And he's saying here, David's like, you know that person. You know the depths of who I am, sometimes far more than I even understand myself. And he says this beautiful piece, like, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I love thinking about that, right? Like, when a baby is formed in the womb of a woman, while there's a very natural process that God set up, it's still a miraculous event in which God is uniquely knitting together that human soul, that spirit, in the midst of that body coming to life as well. That God's working in that process, even in a natural process that he created, he's personally working for the uniqueness of that individual. And so David's response is, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Right? The response of God's knowledge and his interaction with human beings, and his knowledge of both our soul and our spirit and our mind and our speech and our thoughts and our presence wherever we're at, his knowledge of all of that, David sit back and like, whoa, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Fearfully meaning like, understanding and engaging that God should bring some reverent fear in us, right? Not fear like I'm scared of him, but like, wow, some awe. Like, look at that God that knows that much knowledge and is so connected to even my soul and my spirit. Like, there should be an awe and respect and reverence for that God. And then wonderfully, right? Wonderfully made. Wonderful all your works. Wonderful means full of wonder. Right? When you see the knowledge of God, it should just like open up, like just imaginative aspects of wonder should just fill our brains and our minds as we think about who God is and his full knowledge. Let me jump into this last little section. He does say here too that your days that were formed for me, yet none of them were there yet. Like that, even God doesn't just know our soul and our spirit, but God knows the number of our days before there was any days. Before I was born, June 27th, 1978, before that took place, God knew that I was going to be born that day, and he knew the course of what my life will take and the day that I will die. He knows that. I don't know that day yet, but he knew it all before any one of them ever came into existence. And so here's how David ends at 17. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast are the sum of them. If I could count them, they would be more than the sand. I awake and I am still with you, right? So here's David's response. Like, if I was to try to quantify the amount of thoughts that God has, it would be like the sand of the seashore of all the seas. Like, it's unfathomable is what he's saying. The thought processes of God, the knowledge of God, the sheer volume of what God knows is uncalculable. You cannot calculate it. And so it leads him to say this really important line, how precious to me are your thoughts. It's precious to him. Precious that he has a God that knows him so intimately and deeply. Like, that's what we all want to some level in life. We want to be known. Now, there's certain things we want to hide about ourselves that we're ashamed of, but in some level, we want people to know. We want people to even know those dark things sometimes and still love us and still be there for us. Now, picture this. It's precious to David that God knows him on such levels. And at some point it could be that fearful, but also wonderful, that God knows the thoughts I have. He knows where I'm at each and every day, every action of my day. He knows the words that are coming out of my mouth before they come out of my mouth. He knows the number of days that I have. He knows my spirit and my soul. Like, he knows me, every aspect of me, far more than I even know myself. And in all of that, he loves me. Like, to be fully known and fully loved is an extremely beautiful thing. So like, this idea of God's knowledge is not just some arbitrary idea that like, okay, yes, God is all-knowing. He knows all things. The key is like personal. Like, he knows me. He knows every aspect of my life. He knows every aspect of your life. And he still comes to you in love to say, I love you. I've given my son for you. I want relationship with you. I want ongoing daily relationship with you. And yes, I know everything about you, and I still want you. Like, we're never going to find a relationship like that, where we are known on that level and loved with that amount of just amazing love. So, beautiful passage here, beautiful thought process to think through this knowledge of God. Last week, God is spirit. He's everywhere. He's all-knowing. There's nothing that he doesn't know about this entirety of this world. Like, and even anything you might be scared of what's going on in the world, like, he knows it. He's not surprised or shocked by it. Like, to know that he knows everything should bring us comfort and love and acceptance on so many different levels. The fact that he knows it all and loves us deeply. So anyway, let me move into a time of prayer, and then yeah, we'll wrap it up for today. So Father, thank you so much. Thank you for just helping us to engage you this morning, to engage you today, and Lord, just to be able to know you and to know the fact that you know everything about us and you love us. Lord, thank you for helping us to see a little bit more today of what your character is, who you are, that we can rest assured that there's nothing that happens in our life that you are not aware of and that you know intimately and deeply. And Lord, the aspects of my life that I'm not proud of or ashamed of, and you see those, Lord, thank you for your forgiveness of those. Lord, I pray that you'd help fill us with just a wonder and a fearful wonder of you today by just thinking through the aspect of there's nothing in our life that you do not know about us, and engage and connect with us. And Lord, help us to know that we are fully known by you and fully loved through your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, fill us with that knowledge today. Lord, we love you and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Vine Church, thank you for joining me today. We'll jump back in it again next Thursday at 1 o'clock. So looking forward to that time with you next week. So have a good week. We'll see you then.